Hello and welcome to Shar's Craft Haven. Our topic today is my first year with the Laserbox Pro, things I wish I knew, or habits and things that I've learned over the last year. The categories I'm going to cover are the machine, the software, my design process now versus then, and production, processing, and how I charge now versus how I did then. As always, like, subscribe, click on some of the affiliate links if you're going to get an xTool product or if you want an amazing place for Baltic birch and a lot of other wood products. So first of all, my first impressions of the machine, I was really wowed by the production value. I was really excited to get going. I have experience with industrial grade lasers through makerspaces and libraries that I worked at. And I was just excited to have a machine with a built-in camera to not have to manually focus. And specifically the laser what you draw function, getting my kids interested in design, interested in STEM stuff or STEAM stuff, and get them building. So the first thing I ran into, which so many people have run into, is those four little screws. And so, something I wish I had known was where those screws are. So it's the ones that are holding the tray in. There's two in the bottom and there's two in the rails. They're super important. You might not think that at first, but to have the machine clean and running at its full capacity, you really need to have those out. You can crack it to get a little more ventilation, but also to pull those out and clean them periodically. So my first topic, machine. Cleaning is super important. If you're doing something like stamp rubber or engraving on acrylic or cutting dry erase board, you're going to get your lens messy. You're going to get your first mirror messy in the laser head. And crumbs are going to start forming underneath the honeycomb. You really need to take those out. I find that when I'm going to do a messy job, it actually helps to clean before and after the job. So before, so that you have the maximum power going into it, and after, so that your projects that are afterwards don't suffer. So that's one of my big machine lessons that I learned. I clean mine about once a week, but I also clean it before and after those kind of crazy jobs by having a shop vac, pull out the crumb tray, shop vac it. I've found the shop vac is huge in minimizing the downtime between those projects where you have tons of little things that are cut out. You're not going to keep them. Just being able to shop vac those away, pull up the tray, shop vac that. Also makes the machine a lot safer because you don't have debris below that could be struck by the laser to cause problems. So that's, I think, my biggest machine learning. Software, I really struggled with the built-in software in the beginning. One of the big things for the software, which is the tip that I hear a lot of times, is I'm pulling it SVG. All it wants to do is engrave, or all it wants to do is cut, and I want to engrave. So the design tab and clicking the fill checkbox will allow you to engrave using SVGs or DXF. So that was my big software. And I stopped struggling with the software. I use the color block mode basically only once a year when I'm doing Christmas ornaments, and I want those fine score details to save time. Instead of engraving a bunch of details, I can use the score, use a high speed, lower power cut line at the same time as other cut functions and engrave functions to get ornaments done. The rest of the year, color block mode is disengaged. I mostly use the software now just as a pass-through. Do all my design in Inkscape. I do my portrait or my pictures engraving. I do all of that stuff by uploading to Imager, imag-r.com. And that way I'm just importing into the software and I'm going from there. A lot of people have scaling issues. I have another video about that where, you know, if I can figure out the editing, it'll be linked up there. Where you can have your page document the size that the laser bed is, and so scaling is 1-to-1. I've not had any scaling problems since I did that. I know a lot of people still have issues. So that's my software. Use it as a pass-through. Use it for minimal stuff. Design. So in the beginning, I wasn't doing a lot of mass. So I wasn't doing a lot of the same thing over and over again. I like designing new things. But as some of those things catch on, like I've done 20 Advent lanterns this year, which is crazy. When you're doing mass production, I actually think about the scraps now. So a year ago, you know, I'd fit whatever I could on a board and I'd use the camera for little things, but I never thought about mass producing scraps. And so what I mean by that is when I was doing all these lanterns, there would be bits around the sides that were leftovers. So I figured out if I'm going to be doing 20 of these things, each of them taking 2 or 3 sheets, you know, all this material, if I can center all of my scrap material to be in larger blocks, then if I have another project that I might also be mass producing, I can fit a standardized amount in that scrap space. And so I've done a few projects since then that have been able to utilize the mass-produced scrap that was left over. And so I sort of wish I had known then. I would have wasted far less wood had I standardized what would be left over so that it would be more useful in later projects, you know, getting a good chunk all in one location. Using the design tab, clicking fill, that was something I talked about in software. Also designing with the limitations of the onboard software in mind. So again, I think I have a video on this. Grouping or union, you know, union or combine are the path tools in Inkscape. Putting all of the ornaments, nesting them in another software, bringing them in so that you only have 2 layers. You can click on one layer, click the design tab, click checkbox for fill, and then you're done. None of this clicking in little pieces. I know a lot of people have had issues with Glowforge files that they want to use on the Laserbox and the tediousness of how they're designed and all that kind of stuff. And so by doing that, I have saved so much time, and I really wish that I would have known that from the very beginning. So production, process, and charging. Managing scrap is a real struggle. It sounds really, you know, silly to think about it. You know, the more success you have, the more things you're making, the more scrap you have. But scrap can really quickly close down your space. And so something I got 6 or 8 months after I had the Laserbox that I wish I had at the beginning is a little saw. It's from Proxxon. I'll link it in the description. It's made for miniature kind of stuff. And so by having that, I can very quickly cut the pieces out that I want to save. The storage amount I'm storing goes way down. Scrapboard, if you're just laying in piles, it also begins to warp and it's less useful then. So just by having that saw, which was pretty expensive, but it saved me so much material, waste material. I'm not just throwing away a bunch of stuff. Also with that, I would say production and processes. Know what's worth saving. So is a 1 inch by 1 inch square worth saving? Are you making 1 inch by 1 inch things? You know, like having a standardized, this is what I'm going to save. This is the kinds of things I do. And then, you know, like I said, zipping that saw, you know, each week or whatever period of time and getting rid of all that scrap. It's going to choke your space really quickly unless you have a huge space, which I don't. Charging. So a lot of people have been asking this. We did a live stream business on the official page. I really undercharged. when I started out, and I was charging based on similar items that you'd find in a store, and that's really a bad way to charge. Now I charge based on materials, design time, if there's significant engraving time or cutting time. Like if I'm having to sit by the laser, then, you know, I'm going to compensate myself for that time. And something that James, hi James, if you're watching, brought up, which is pretty significant, is consider the laser like an employee that has depreciation, that has, you know, you're not going to have your laser forever. So you want to build into what you're charging both recouping the cost of the laser, but also planning towards what your replacement is going to be for the laser, be it, you know, a new tube or things like that if you outlive the warranty, or, you know, purchasing an extended warranty, but building that into your price so that you're paying yourself fairly. Which is something I really wish I had done in the beginning, because it's really hard to change people's expectations after they've gotten something super cheap that's handmade that took you a lot of time. So I think I'm gonna stop there. If you have other questions, feel free to join the Makeblock xTool official group or the D1 group. There are tons of helpful people there. Each of those pages also has a settings tab, which is something that didn't exist. So in the files, there's either featured or tagged a community database of best settings, sometimes multiple settings for the same material. So that can give you a huge jump start on getting your stuff going. Links in the description. If you're going to get any of the xTool products, affiliate links are in there as well. And links to where I get my amazing Baltic birch. So thanks for watching and have fun lasering.